Hello, Blue Jays fans, and welcome to episode 271 of the Jays from the Couch radio podcast, brought to you by, of course, jaysfromthecouch.com. We're so happy you tuned in for another week of Blue Jays talk, whether it's live on our YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter. We really appreciate that. We love the interaction as well. Send us your comments and your questions, and we'll throw them right up on the screen live, and we'll attempt to do our best to answer those. As well, don't forget the audio version of our podcast available Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher. Everywhere you find a podcast, you'll find Jays from the Couch. I suggest you download today. And I'm your host, as always, Sean Doyle. You can follow me on Twitter at Doyle JFtC. We've got a great episode for you this week. We're going to try something new, of course, just because why not? The end of a baseball season is absolutely the point where you try something new, obviously. We're going to talk about September, right around the corner. End of the season is almost upon us, and will the Blue Jays even be playing in October? And to help me do all of this, I've got my I don't know how to describe them other than the people who keep me going here on the podcast. First of all, host of the On Feck Circle, Tuesdays, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, the feckless wonder himself. Steve, good evening to you.
Hi, Sean. Hi, Karen. Hi, Kat.
And host, Sunny Side of the Dome, Thursdays, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Karen Suter, good evening to you. And is that marbles?
No, that's velvet.
Velvet, right. Okay.
Yeah, velvet's all black. Marbles is black and white, hence the name marbles.
I only saw the tail, so yeah.
So you've lost your marbles?
No, he's around.
Okay.
So we've got a great show, and we're gonna try something new, of course, and we're gonna have some fun, and we're gonna try and make it a weekly thing, and I'll explain that in a little bit. But I want to take this opportunity, just take a minute to share some exciting news with all of our Blue Jays fans. As you know, we're thrilled to have our Blue Jays playing back at the Rogers Center. Just ask Karen. And there's a new way for fans to be part of the game. As the official Canadian vodka of the Toronto Blue Jays, Polar Ice Vodka, look at that,
Nice.
has created a new signature cocktail to help bring that in-stadium experience to fans, no matter where they are, whether it's behind the mic, like us, or tuning in from your couch. Introducing, the drink is called the Polar Leadoff, a new signature cocktail developed by Polar Ice, and they've hit a home run. I'm telling you, the cocktail recipe, listen to this. Polar Ice vodka, 1/4 ounce blue curacao, sparkling lemonade, big tall glass of ice, topped with popcorn. In addition to the cocktail, to celebrate the new partnership announcement between Polar Ice and the Blue Jays, fans can pick up one of these limited edition bottles at your participating liquor store across Canada, obviously while supplies last. Just look for the two iconic polar bears playing baseball. There they are right there. That's what you're looking for. Anyway, it's very exciting. I recommend looking for it if that is of interest to you. And of course, as always, please enjoy responsibly. So that's exciting, first of all, to,
Absolutely.
to have a drink that's the kind of, I don't know, spawned by and inspired by a stadium, a baseball stadium, which is pretty cool. What may not be pretty cool is our opening segment here. We're going to try something new here. Karen is going to take a back seat and scrutinize us. And you can tell if you're watching live by the shakes of the head and the eye rolls and everything else, because that'll be our applausometer, right? Like it'll be the gauge here. So if you're not listening or tuning in live, then you're missing all of that. All of it. So anyway, here we go. We're going to introduce a new segment here called Fake Blue Jays News. So the idea here, I was sitting around thinking, you know what, we need to have some fun with our Blue Jays, and they frustrate you sometimes. They make you happy, so sometimes all you can do is laugh. And so we're going to go back to the days of, remember when Saturday Night Live was funny? No, I don't think anybody remembers that. Never mind. But what we're going to do is we're going to introduce our own weekend update-esque with some Blue Jays fake Blue Jays news. We're going to throw some headlines out there, and the cool part is, for us, we won't know if we're actually being funny or not, right? Because if you're live on television in front of an audience, you can tell right away. Now we'll just have to wait for the hate mail to come in. But anyway, so before we get to the real stuff and talking about September baseball and potentially October baseball, Jays from the Couch presents fake Blue Jays news. Steve, over to you.
Thank you, Sean. While much-needed wins have been elusive for Toronto of recent days, the Blue Jays did enjoy a victory in court today. A U.S. federal judge dismissed with prejudice a restraint of trade complaint against the team by several sports gambling platforms. The gambling concerns filed their lawsuit July 30th, the day of the MLB trade deadline. And they're citing torts that govern activities that prevent people and companies from doing business and being prosperous. The plaintiffs contend that the inexplicable roster decisions made by the front office in 2020 and 2021 are, in essence, they've made it impossible to set accurate odds and fair betting options for their customers. Attorneys have argued that the documents and the decisions to not sign much needed pitching help in the offseason was just a starter, but then the inexplicable decisions to use on a regular and at crucial time, I just drew a blank.
We're off to a great start.
Off to a great start. No, but basically, the thing is, they repeatedly used less talented players, like Joel Payamps, like Jeremy Beasley, like Breivik Bolero, like Rafael Dolis, Josh Palacios. And they cited that as direct examples of the Blue Jays putting themselves at a competitive disadvantage. And the complaint conceded that while restraint of trade sort of lawsuits in the past have always sort of been around, punitive actions and the restraint of players playing and moving from team to team, they feel in this case it's more of a public service to file this complaint because the actions by the front office have created an atmosphere of, I quote, confusion and contempt, especially in Blue Jays and MLB fans. This caused the companies to not only lose customers and lose revenues, but they've cited a very, very rapidly increasing level of depression, addiction, and mistrust in the Blue Jays fan base. U.S. Circuit Court Judge Saul Goodman's decision did state a general agreement in principle with the complaints and the indirect damages suffered by the gambling industry and by baseball fans, but Goodman declined to allow the case to proceed because there's no real precedent in a case such as that. In summation, Judge Goodman wrote, while the court is baffled by the business practices of the Toronto Baseball Club, GM Ross Atkins, and manager Charlie Montoyo, including the recent claiming of the fossilized remains of Gerard Dyson, it is not within the purview of the court to legislate stupidity. Judge Goodman concluded, since the Blue Jays no longer play home games at U.S.-based facilities, it is the court's opinion that they are Canada's problem now.
And in other fake Blue Jays news, you may have heard Bo Bichette, star shortstop for the Toronto Blue Jays, stung by a bee recently. The B is fine. It's going to make a full recovery, but he now has a higher average than half the Blue Jays lineup in August. Blue Jays GM Ross Atkins has been in touch with the B's agent, but he's holding out for a major league deal. And when reached for comment, former Blue Jay Dave Winfield asked if anyone tried killing the bee by throwing a baseball at it. As well, next item. I'm sure this will, anyway, all right. In an effort to increase their speed on the base paths, the Blue Jays brought in Malik Smith and Gerard Dyson, and these deals happened only after Shapiro and company petitioned the league to allow an unusual addition. So this unusual thing didn't work out, so they went anyway. Sources say he called the Toronto Zoo for their cheetah. Talks failed when Rob Manfred decided the animal sounded too much like cheating, and now there is going to be a 6-month investigation.
Pass the polar ice, please.
Blue Jays star George Springer has been on the IL and returns today, but he's been on the IL for most of the season. But he's not the only one. A lot of the pitching depth has been as well. And sources say that this prompted Blue Jays management to introduce their new jerseys made entirely of bubble wrap. And we hear that Vlad Jr. can't wait to start popping his teammates' uniforms. And finally, in fake Blue Jays news, the Blue Jays are owned, obviously, by Rogers Communication, and so it stands to reason that they all get cell phones given out to everybody. Reese McGuire is holding out for unlimited data, while management refuses to take the parental controls off. It's an ongoing saga. And that has been fake Blue Jays news. All right. Listen, if you can't laugh, what else can you do, right? And we'll continue playing with it and seeing what we can come up with here. I've got, listen, already the news lines are off the hook. We've got Nick watching on Facebook, enjoying himself. Sarah watching on Facebook, enjoying herself. Listen, that's what it's all about. We make stuff up. None of it's true, but it's funny and it's entertainment. That's all it is, folks. So somebody out there, I don't even know if this Saul Goodman is an actual judge, but if he is, we may be in trouble.
Was from Better Call Saul.
Oh, yes, of course. How did I miss that? Anyway, all right. So, in other news, the Blue Jays have been up and down. And it's been a disappointing month. They find themselves, I believe, at 5.5 or 6.5 games out of the wild card. Karen, you can correct me here. Is it 5.5? I looked this morning, and I'm pretty sure.
I believe it's 5.5 as of right now because the Jays won yesterday and the Red Sox lost. Thank you very much, Cleveland team.
Right. They're guarding something. The Blue Jays playoff chances. So, okay. Up and down, disappointing thus far. They still are within, mathematically, they have a chance to get into the postseason. I was going to say as good a chance as anybody, but I don't think that's true. So, Karen, right now, starting the final month of the season, and we've got still a lot of games against Baltimore still to be played, right? So there's, fingers crossed there. But Karen, how do you feel entering the final month of the season?
Right. Well, right off the bat, I can guarantee you that there will be Blue Jays baseball played at the Rogers Center in October of 2021 because the regular season ends on October 3rd.
You heard it here first, folks.
and beyond that, I mean, they've still got a chance to make the playoffs. It's unfortunately, it's not as good a chance as they had a few weeks ago. They really, on paper, had a chance to make up some ground, and they couldn't take advantage. They finally won a series over the weekend for the first time in 3 weeks. Everything else had been either a series loss or a 4-game split. And I mean, it's really baffling what the heck is going on with this team. More often than not, they get good pitching. It's the amazing offense that seems to have gone into a slumber altogether, and we need them to wake up. But I mean, like I was saying yesterday, who knows? I mean, the Jays have got 3 against Baltimore starting tonight, and while we're doing that, the Red Sox have 4 against the red-hot Tampa Bay Rays. So anything is possible. Stranger things have happened. You guys remember the 2007 Colorado Rockies? So,
Yep.
Strange things happen.
And I forget the year, but the Cardinals as well, right? They were like a 500 team, made the postseason, and then won the World Series.
Okay.
Like,
yeah, there was one year that the Cardinals had the same regular season record as the Blue Jays did, but because the Blue Jays are in the AL East, they couldn't even make the playoffs, and the Cardinals won the World Series. So
right.
it's like you just have to get in the door, and then it's a whole different season, and anything can happen.
That's right. And I don't know, like I don't want to keep beating that AL East drum, but right now, 3 of the 5 teams would be in the postseason. And a 4th, probably should be, if it weren't for, whatever's here and there. But Steve, I hesitate because I don't want to imply ever that you're correct, but I joke.
No, it's fair enough.
But right now, it's looking like you were correct. Boston in the postseason, Toronto not. In all honesty, do you see that continuing for the last month of the season, knowing full well that the Blue Jays have a better schedule, maybe?
I still do believe the Red Sox are going to make the postseason, and I also still believe the Yankees are not. I think the Yankees are going to have like a 1964, Philadelphia Phillies collapse, and everything's going to fall apart down the stretch. Or like I talked about on last week's on Feck Circle, 1987, the Blue Jays had a seemingly unsurmountable lead with 7 games left in the season, and they lost, including getting swept by Detroit in the final weekend. So I just don't think this is the year for the Jays. I think they misjudged exactly how deep their major league ready pitching is. Not the quality of the pitchers, but the pitchers that were ready to pitch, and that cost them early. They did not act early like the Rays did, like the Brewers did, like other teams did. Strike early, force a trade to get yourself better, and maybe then pieces would have fallen into place. It kills me to say it, and honestly, I so want to say I told you so, but my Blue Jays fandom just does not allow me to do that, because I'm just as grieved and upset as you or any other Blue Jay fans are that this is a season of what ifs.
Right. However, I want to ask Karen, I'll ask you this. Are we disappointed in the 2021 season because of the 2020 season? And I guess my real question is, were they really a playoff team last year? Probably not. So, but they were in the playoffs. So did we kind of have higher expectations because of that? And now we're seeing how hard it is to be a playoff team in a 162 game schedule?
Maybe there's something to that. I know last year, before the whole shutdown and the expanded playoffs and everything was announced, my predictions for last year with a regular playoff format and 5 teams per league instead of 8, making it where that the Jays, with a week left in the regular season, would still be mathematically alive for a wild card spot, but I didn't think they would get one. Well, if you take the season that there was and take out the expanded playoffs, I think that's pretty much where they would have been. I thought that they were kind of knocking on the door, and I still see them talent-wise and what they can do at times. I see them as a better team this year than they were last year. So I really thought, and I have not given up hope that they will actually be one of the 2 wild card teams. They're not going to win the division. They're too far back, and the Rays are too good, and there's not enough time. But I mean, to me, it's progression that, okay, last year they made it only because it was 8 teams. And this year, if they can actually be one of the top 5 out of 15 teams, then that's progression to me. And if they can have a better playoffs than they did last year, which could be as simple as winning 1 darn game, then again, it's moving forward as a team. I never really picked this year's bunch to win the World Series. I didn't think that as a group they had enough major league experience to go that far. But and again, we'll see. I still, whether it's enough to get them in or not this year, I still don't think that we've seen the last of this group. Like they're not going to go out with a whimper. They're going to at least put together some sort of run, and maybe it'll be enough, and maybe it won't be, but.
Right. And I think that's the, your point about the building on last year, that is not in question. When you look at the additions in the bullpen of Simber and so on, but and Barrios as well. This is a better team. Of course it is. But it's not looking like a playoff team right now. And Steve, I think the question is now in September, where you're only trailing by enough that you can. It's not insurmountable. So what do you do if you're the Blue Jays? Do you continue to push and go for it? Do you call guys up and just say, you know what, if it happens, great, let's get these guys some experience, or do you just say screw it? And because I don't think they're going to say screw it. They're not going to, just call 2021 right off. So, how do you do it?
Well, I think you do the hybrid method, which to a certain degree they did last year, bringing up, they activated Kirk, down the stretch. You bring up, there's no 40-man rosters, thank God. There's only 28-man rosters as far as expanding, but you bring up guys that you think, like they've done with Kevin Smith, that you think could be contributors next year and in the future. Is Gabriel Moreno for real? Is he as good as he has played this year? If so, bring him up, let him catch a couple of games. It doesn't really matter whether Reese McGuire gets any more at-bats or any more turns behind the plate. I don't think any pitcher is really going to be all that upset about it. Danny Jansen's still hurt, so fine. Bring up Moreno, let Moreno and Kirk split the catching duties, down the stretch. Keep Kevin Smith up. He struggled, sure. He has earned the right to show what he can do at the major league level. They're already doing that now, mainly because of injury to a degree, but you work those guys in. You bring up Nate Pearson, you put him in the back of the bullpen and say, Nate, be a closeout reliever. Not the closer, but be a late inning leverage reliever. Let's see, can he do it? Give these guys the chance, and then if they're successful, that's only going to improve your chances to close that gap in the wild card race. But if not, you've already shown you could hang in a race for most of the year, despite setbacks, despite a rodeo clown GM, despite a manager who I guess he just uses a Ouija board. He accepts it in the thing and uses a Ouija board to make decisions. Despite all of that, the team is going to finish ahead of the management, and they're going to be at least to the last week or two of the season in a race. And if you can get young guys experience, give them that experience.
Except this is I have to talk about this. The young guys. I know you mean the Kevin Smiths of the world, but the young guys were Bo and Vladdy, and like they're tired. They're mentally tired and beat up from a season. And this is something that, and I know like maybe I'm being too hard and too harsh here, but it seems to be like this can't happen. How is it that a professional team has not prepared? And when all of these guys were brought in, we heard so much about they know what the big leagues are like. You know, they've been there and they have an idea and they're not going to get overwhelmed. And now here we are at the end of August 2021, and we're hearing they're overwhelmed, they're tired, they're fatigued, they're beat. Like, to me, that I don't understand that. So, Karen, I'm going to ask you to cut me off here. And
yeah. No, it's I have to say it's a little bit mind-boggling for anyone who might not know. So Mike Wilner on Twitter, he posted a couple days ago that he'd had a long conversation with Dante Bichette, retired MLB player, also the father of Bo, and apparently the young guys were fried. What was the word that was used? And then Wilner, who now writes for the Toronto Star, actually wrote an article and posted an article about it. And apparently it just says that it's not that they're physically tired, they're mentally tired. And because they're young, there's ups and downs in the seasons, and the downs really bring them down, I think was kind of the gist of the article. And that it's not necessarily too late for them to get out of it, but what has to be done, and yada yada yada. And I found it a bit of a head scratcher, to be honest. I mean, the Blue Jays, they're they're a young team. Like, is their average age that much younger than a lot of other teams? Because there's a lot of young players out there nowadays, and they don't just have rookies. I mean, they've got veterans. They've got George Springer. They've got Marcus Semien. I mean, even guys who've been on the team for a few years are not all that young in MLB terms. Randall Grichuk, Teoscar Hernandez, and all of that. And like, what's so unique about the Blue Jays that they would be fried compared to 29 other teams? I mean, I almost expected a reference to, well, they've had 3 homes in one season and they keep having to move. I was expecting that to be part of the discussion, but it wasn't. So maybe that is going on, but they're not, they went out and posted this article, but that wasn't any part of it. Mm-hmm. So I really don't know what the heck is going on. It's a bit of a head scratcher. But right. Yeah, I mean, personally, I think, there are some young guys that have some talent and deserve to have a real look in the majors, and Kevin Smith is one of them. But as long as the Jays have a realistic chance at postseason, even though it might not be a good chance, I think they've got to put their best team on the field. And as much as Randall Grichuk is not my favorite Blue Jay, one of the things that you can count on him from most of the time is solid defense. And I don't think he makes the mistake that Palacios did on Friday that cost the team the game. So
right.
I don't know.
Yeah. And in other fake Blue Jays news, Mike Wilner has had his media credentials stripped. Like, I can just imagine, like Mark Shapiro opening up the new, I was going to say newspaper, but nobody reads a newspaper anymore. But I mean, that's that kind of post or article has to have upper management going, oh. But I think, Karen, I wonder if you hit it on the head in that they're young and they had high expectations for themselves, and losing in August and performing the way they were performing hit them, maybe, as you said, hit them harder than it would a veteran who's used to that. I don't know. I'm just guessing, right? But Steve, I'm gonna throw it to you there. Like, I don't know, you're pretty old school and you've been around baseball a long time. So do you kind of just shake your head and and say, get over it? Or do you kind of point the finger at management and saying they're not preparing these guys?
In this case, I am not going to attack the front office as far as developing things. I mean, I think they've mishandled pitcher development, some of it out of need, some of it out of just bad strategy. But this whole thing about being fried, first of all, it's Mike Wilner. So you subtract a bunch of credibility points right there. Secondly, the point came from the father of a player. That's not from any of the players' mouths themselves. Now, you can assume, okay, Bo's talking to his dad, but I mean, I think any player is going to talk to their father or a coach they were close with if they're going through a tough time and just kind of vent. I think that's a natural thing. But even if they are fried, even if they are struggling with the pressures of moving 3 times this year, with the pressures of really being in a pennant race for an extended period of time for the first time, not just a 60-game season, I mean, actual full-time season, this is how players develop. This is how players learn about what they need to do to get better and more consistent. You know, it's my biggest pet peeve about pitch counts with young pitchers. They're not going to learn how to pitch out of trouble if the minute, they hit 80 pitches or 90 pitches or through the lineup twice, they're not going to learn how to work their way through adversity if you pull them all the time. All they're going to do is, play for a little while. It's almost like stunt doubles. The star's out there and looking great, and then comes a dangerous stunt. Double, and you call a stunt double and they do the stunt. The actor's not getting any better because they're not really expanding their craft. That's why I'm a big believer is you bring in Jake Pearson, you throw him in high leverage situations now. Find out, teach him how to be a leverage reliever, because it hasn't been successful with the way they've developed starting pitchers. I think Nate's never going to be a starter now, at least not here. I think mentally he did not react well to how the Blue Jays handle pitchers. Kevin Smith, Gabriel Moreno, whatever young player that you want to think of, you put them out there in the situation. And I'm going to compare this to like the 89-90 Atlanta Braves. They brought in Glavine and Smoltz and Ronnie Gant and a bunch of good young players, David Justice, and they struggled. And like Smoltz got hammered, Glavine got hammered, but they learned. Okay, I can't be all cutesy and do what I did at AA or even at AAA and try to get major league hitters out. They learned on the job, and I think that's what the Blue Jays should use September for. Learn on the job. These young guys need to learn how to push through it. It's like a marathon runner hitting a wall. They still keep running. They might not be as effective in some cases, but in some cases, when they push through it, they get that second wind and performance improves. They're not going to learn how to go and win over 162 games unless you do it. And in the case of young players, this is the perfect time to dangle their feet because there's still pressure, because there is that mythical wild card spot that people still think, because mathematically, they're still eligible. I mean, mathematically, I can still live to 85, but I probably am not going to. It's math is nice. Let's truly commit ourselves to development. And if I'm the front office, that's what I'm doing. And I'm saying, hey, you make mistakes, we'll talk about it after the game, but go out there tomorrow and forget about it. And I think that's what they need to do.
Right. And speaking of mathematics, typically we end our show with our stat of the week. And we're not really going to have time for an extended one, so I'm going to throw one out there quickly. And I suggest everybody be following the little GB in the standings. When you look up Major League Baseball standings and look at GB, it means games back. And right now, Toronto is 5.5 games back of a wild card spot. Don't look at the division because it's not pretty. But look at the wild card, look at that games back, and of course, you can pick up half a game or lose half a game depending on who's off that night and whatever. But this is the time of the year to be watching that particular number, right? The games back. So there we go. Stat of the week, games back. I pulled that out of nowhere. Anyway, so we're at the end of episode 271. Karen, first of all, I want to say thank you to you for enduring the fake Blue Jays news segment. I had a lot of fun doing it. I don't know that you had a lot of fun witnessing it, but like a car wreck, you can't look away. And thank you for not looking away. And Steve, as well, for your bravery. Thank you for test piloting our new segment. And I'm looking forward to future editions. So thank you both for joining me this evening.
Well, thank you. That was the only one that cleared my lawyer's libel and slander guidelines. I do have others, but my lawyer hasn't returned them back to me yet to be able to do them. So.
I'm going to have a new thing going across the bottom saying Jace from the Couch is not responsible for the comments made.
Oh, that's a good idea.
But for everybody watching at home on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter, thank you so much. Keep those comments and questions coming, and we really appreciate it. And catch the audio version on Apple, Google, Spotify, everywhere you find a podcast. You'll find us there. Tune in tomorrow evening, Tuesday, 6 p.m. for the On Feck Circle, starring the feckless wonder himself. And Thursday evening at 6 p.m., Miss Karen Suter, Sunny Side of the Dome. We have so much great content for everybody, whether it's on YouTube or jaysfromthecouch.com. So for Karen, for Steve, what was it? The mummified remains of Gerard Dyson?
Fossilized remains.
Fossilized. My apologies for. Anyway,
so fast.
for Gerard Dyson, this is Sean Doyle. You can follow me on Twitter at Doyle JFtC. Hoping life gives you a juicy fastball down the middle and you don't miss it. Take care.